Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Friday, August 4th, 2023. And if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my $19 rundown best bet, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Friday in Major League Baseball. First up, it's the Atlanta Braves taking on the Chicago Cubs. Max Fried and Kyle Hendricks are your starters. It makes sense the Braves are big favorites in this game with one of the best records in baseball, but Max Fried has not pitched since May 5th. He was placed on the 60-day IL. You have to think he's probably not going to go too deep into this ball game, and the Chicago Cubs have good numbers against lefties as of late. Top 15 in OPS and isolated power as a team with a low strikeout rate to go with it. Kyle Hendricks has been solid as of late. His last two starts, 7 innings, 3 runs against the Cardinals, 6 1/3, 3 runs against the White Sox. Before that, 6 innings, 1 run ball against the Nationals. I think he's good enough here, even though it's a tough matchup against a very good Braves lineup that hits righties well. I'm going to take that 1.5 runs, sprinkle on the money line as well with the Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field. Next up, it's Tampa Bay Rays taking on the Detroit Tigers. Zach Littell and Reese Olson are your starters. Littell mostly featured out of the bullpen in his career. We saw him pitch 5 innings in the starting pitching role against Houston in his last game. He pitched well, 5 innings, 2 runs, but only 4 strikeouts, 8 base hits allowed. Personally, I'd prefer Littell more in the bullpen than as a starting pitching option. When you look at Reese Olson, yes, he's got that 4.71 ERA, but his expected numbers aren't too bad. And I think there's some value here with the Detroit Tigers. I wouldn't want to lay this kind of price with the Rays on the road. When you look offensively, this team in the last month has actually not been much better than the Tigers against right-handed pitchers, especially in team OPS. Yes, Detroit's 28th in baseball in OPS against righties, but the Tampa Bay Rays are 24th with a 25.2% strikeout rate. I think there's value with the Detroit Tigers, a team its bullpen's improving. I think Reese Olson, like I mentioned, has got some upside to his game. Give me the Detroit Tigers on the money line, getting that really nice plus money. Next, we go to Great American Ballpark as the Reds take on the Nationals. Graham Ashcraft and Patrick Corbin are your starters. And look at Graham Ashcraft's last 5 starts. All 5 of those games, 2 earned runs or fewer allowed. In 4 of those 5 starts, he was able to go 6 innings, so mostly quality starts. One of those games against these Washington Nationals, 6 innings, 1 run in the 9-2 Reds win. And he's faced some tough lineups along the way. He faced the Brewers twice, the Dodgers in his last start on the road. Now, Ashcraft has struggled at Great American Ballpark this season, that's for sure. But I still think he's the better option in this game with the better lineup and the better bullpen to go with it. Patrick Corbin, an ERA above 5 this season, even steeper on the road. His last 2 starts against the Mets and the Rockies, he goes around 12 innings of work, 9 earned runs, 16 base hits, 3 home runs, so giving up a lot of base runners, a lot of sharp contact, extra base hits. He's facing a Reds lineup that's hit lefties well this season and well in the last month. Give me the Cincinnati Reds here on the run line, laying those 1.5 runs. In our next game, it's the Houston Astros taking on the New York Yankees. Hunter Brown and Luis Severino are your starters. We see a pretty steep total in this game, and I think it's for good reason. I like the over here. Severino now an ERA above 7 on the year. It's been a disastrous season for him. An ERA above 5 at Yankee Stadium is not much better. I think the Astros get to him early and often. We saw him give up 9 earned runs his last game against the Orioles, 10 base hits to go with it. On the other side, Hunter Brown, even though his last 2 starts were quality starts on paper, the concern for me is the home run ball. He's given up 4 home runs his last 3 starts combined. He faced some pretty weak lineups along the way. Teams like the Rays that we just mentioned have struggled against righties. The Oakland A's have been one of the worst lineups in baseball. And not only the home run ball, but the strikeout number is starting to dip in his last couple of games. Only 8 strikeouts in those 12 innings. And the Yankees, it's Yankee Stadium. It's a very hitter-friendly ballpark. Even though this team has not been great offensively this year, I still think they'll be able to get to Hunter Brown for a few runs. And when you look at both of these bullpens, both bullpens in the last month, an ERA above 4. Not the best expected numbers. Give me the over here in Houston, New York. Next up, we see the Philadelphia Phillies taking on the Kansas City Royals. Jordan Lyles and Aaron Nola are your starters. Now, I know the Royals have been one of the worst teams in baseball this year, and Jordan Lyles has been one of the least profitable pitchers in baseball, but I still think the Phillies are severely overvalued in a game like this. Aaron Nola just hasn't been that minus 200, minus 250 pitcher that we've seen in recent seasons. This year he's got a 4.43 ERA. His last start against the Pirates, one of his worst of the year, 4 2/3 innings, 9 base hits, 7 total runs. 5 of those were earned, a home run, 3 walks to go with it. That's against the Pittsburgh Pirates team that in the last month against righties is 21st in baseball in team OPS. When you look at Kansas City, they're actually right around league average in OPS and isolated power against righties. They're making improvements. Jordan Lyles also making improvements. We know he struggled mightily at the beginning of the season, still has that ugly 2-12 record, win-loss record, but in the month of July, in 21 innings, Lyles had a 3.86 ERA. He won the last game against the Minnesota, or the Royals went on to win the game against the Minnesota Twins, 10-7 in extra innings. Lyles was decent in that game, 5 innings, 3 runs, 4 strikeouts. And, I think Kansas City, when we saw him sweep the Twins, saw him take the series against the New York Mets, I think that they're a live dog here. I'm going to take those 1.5 runs and a sprinkle on the money line in this one on the road. Next up, it's the New York Mets taking on the Baltimore Orioles. We're going to see David Peterson and Dean Kramer on the mound. I think this is a lopsided pitching matchup, and I think that this matchup in general favors the Orioles pretty significantly. I mean, David Peterson, a lefty, ERA just below 6 on the season overall, but above 8 on the road this season with a 1-5 record. Facing an Orioles team that against lefties in the last month is 5th in baseball in isolated power, 6th in team OPS, and has a very low strikeout rate to go with it. I think Peterson struggles. I think the Mets bullpen behind him struggles. Dean Kramer, even though he's got that 4.66 ERA, which is pretty steep overall this year, he's a winning machine for the Orioles. He's 10-4 personally. The Orioles win a lot of his games. He's been one of the more profitable pitchers in baseball this year. I like the Orioles in this game, laying the 1.5 runs at Camden Yards. Next up is the Chicago White Sox taking on the Cleveland Guardians. We're going to see Mike Clevenger and Logan Allen on the mound in this one. Now, not my favorite game on the board, but I'm going to lean towards the White Sox here, getting the plus money on the road. We saw the same pitching matchup last week in Chicago. It was a 7-2 win for the White Sox. Clevenger, 5 innings, a shutout ball, no walks allowed. His control was really good his first start back. He only had 3 strikeouts, but that makes sense against the Guardians. They do a really good job of limiting strikeouts. Logan Allen really struggled against these White Sox. 6 innings, 8 base hits, 5 earned runs, 2 home runs allowed. Makes it 4 home runs the last 2 outings combined against the Royals and White Sox, teams that are struggling, and both of those games were losses for the Guardians. And when you look at Cleveland in the bullpen, this bullpen's starting to regress a little bit. Not the best expected numbers. The ERA is at 5.46 in the last month. I think the plus money is worth it here with Chicago, so I'm going to take that plus money with the White Sox. Next up, we see the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Boston Red Sox, a big-time AL East rivalry. Alek Manoah and James Paxton are your starters. Now, even though Manoah's been better on the road this season compared to his starts at Rogers Center, and even though he's been better as of late in general, 4 1/3 innings, his last start against the Angels, only 1 run allowed with 6 strikeouts, I still don't love him in this spot. I mean, the Red Sox are a very tough lineup to face. Fenway is a very tough place to pitch, and Manoah still has those control issues. I mean, his last 3 starts combined, 12 walks allowed, a couple hit by pitches as well. I do think he struggles here, just like he struggled against the Red Sox back at the beginning of the season at Fenway Park, May 3rd. It was an 8-3 win for the Red Sox. Manoah, in 5 innings of work, gave up 5 total runs. 2 of those were earned, so his defense didn't help him out there, but 8 base hits allowed. He really struggled to find the put-away pitch in that game. Like I mentioned, Red Sox good numbers against righties. They don't strike out much. James Paxton pitching really well at Fenway Park this year. 28 innings of work, 2-0 record, 2.25 ERA. Good strikeout numbers, low walk rate, low home run rate. I think he pitches well in this game against the Blue Jays team, and it just doesn't have great numbers against lefties overall this year. The power numbers especially. Give me the Boston Red Sox here on the money line with a lean towards the run line as well in this one. Next up, we go to the Marlins-Rangers matchup at Globe Life Field. Jesus Luzardo and Jordan Montgomery are your starters. I think there's value with the Marlins in this game. I mean, both teams have hit lefties well this season. Miami in the last month is 3rd in baseball in team OPS against lefties with a very low strikeout rate. And Jordan Montgomery was pitching well for St. Louis before his last 2 starts with the Cardinals, where they were both losses for the Cardinals, and he gave up 8 earned runs against Chicago in 12 innings combined, giving up 2 home runs and 6 walks as well. A little bit of a concern going into his first game as a Ranger. And Jesus Luzardo, even though his numbers have been better at Lone Depot Park than on the road this year, you look at his last 3 starts on the road against the Washington Nationals, Boston Red Sox, and St. Louis Cardinals. In those innings, 16 and a third innings combined, I believe, 4 earned runs allowed. So pretty good numbers for Luzardo there. He's been pitching better on the road as of late. Had a good month of July with a 2.89 ERA. Marlins bullpen, even though it's kind of been inconsistent lately, I still think is a decent bullpen that added at the trade deadline. I'm going to take that plus money here with the Miami Marlins on the road. Next up, it's the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. We're going to see Quinn Priester and Colin Ray on the mound here. I do think the Brewers, it's tough to go against them in this season series, especially when they're playing in Milwaukee. The Pirates have just really struggled in Milwaukee over the years, and Quinn Priester has just struggled so far in his first few Major League games. He's got an ERA above 9 now on the season. In those 15 and 2/3 innings, 11 walks allowed. The control's been a big problem, especially his last game against the Phillies. Even though the Pirates went on to win that game, Priester gave up 5 earned runs and 6 walks there, so can't trust him in this one. Give me the Milwaukee Brewers in a lean. Not, Ray's not my favorite starting pitcher to back, but I still think he's the better option here with the better lineup and much better bullpen to go with it. So give me the Brewers here. Next up, we go to St. Louis as the Rockies take on the Cardinals. Chris Flexen and Adam Wainwright are your starters. Don't love either of these starting pitching options in this game, but I do think the Cardinals have the upper hand. I think they have the better offense here, and I also worry about the Rockies, their first game back from a Coors Field homestand. Yes, they had a day off in between, but I still think we see some sluggish bats from Colorado. And, even though the Rockies, their last time they were on the road, they didn't play too bad at baseball. Overall, this year and in years prior, the Rockies have just not been a very good road team. Chris Flexen, last start against the A's, his first start as a Rocky, 3 2/3 innings, 5 earned runs, 6 total runs, 2 homers, and 6 walks in an 11-3 Rockies loss. Wainwright has been a little bit better as of late for St. Louis his last couple of games. I'm going to take the St. Louis Cardinals here and lay the 1.5 runs. Next up is the Seattle Mariners taking on the Los Angeles Angels. Luis Castillo and Reed Detmers are your starters. Now, the Mariners don't have great numbers against lefties in the last month or overall this season. Pretty high strikeout rate as well. But Reed Detmers, I don't think he's going to last too long in this ballgame. His pitch count's been a little bit of a problem last couple of games. He only pitched 4 2/3 innings his last start, 5 innings his previous start, 3 1/3 back on July 8th against the Dodgers. If the Mariners can work the pitch counts and get Detmers out of the game early, they have a big advantage when it comes to the bullpen in this matchup. And Castillo's been pitching well as of late. His last 2 starts, 13 innings combined, only 2 runs with 16 strikeouts. So I could see a low-scoring pitcher's duel in the first 5 innings of this game. And then when it comes to the bullpens, I think the Mariners have the big advantage there. The Angels in the last month and overall this season just really struggling in that bullpen. But in the last month, 5.93 ERA with the second highest Sierra. Give me the Seattle Mariners here on the money line at a pretty decent price on the road. Next up, we see the Minnesota Twins taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. We're seeing Romanelli and Bailey Ober on the mound. Both of these teams not playing great baseball recently. You got to think both of these teams probably pretty frustrated. And this is a pretty crucial series for both of these teams as well. But I do think the Twins have the upper hand here. I think Ober is the better starting pitcher, even though we saw him struggle in his last couple of games, especially with the home run ball. But we know he throws a lot of strikes. Sometimes those strikes go over the heart of the plate. He's facing a Diamondbacks team, though, just struggling mightily offensively against lefties, against righties as of late. Their last 10 games or so, they've scored 4 runs or fewer in a majority of those games. Against right-handed pitching in the last 30 days, they're 22nd in team OPS, 21st in isolated power. Their strikeout rate's gone up a little bit as well. I think Ober has a bounce-back start here. Romanelli, in 2 of his last 3 starts, only going 5 innings apiece in those games. A little bit of a concern for me. He gave up 3 runs and 7 base hits his last start against the Seattle Mariners in a 4-0 loss. And Diamondbacks bullpen behind Kelly has also not been good at all in the last 30 days with an ERA above 6. The expected numbers aren't great either. I'm going to take the Minnesota Twins here on the money line at Target Field. Next up, we see the final game for Friday's card in Major League Baseball, the Los Angeles Dodgers and the San Diego Padres. Bobby Miller and Yu Darvish are your starting pitchers in this one. I like the under in this game. Bobby Miller, even though he's got that ERA above 5 on the road this season, I like what I'm seeing from him as of late. His control's been really great. Only 3 walks allowed his last 5 starts combined. Good strikeout numbers. We always have to worry about the home run ball with him a little bit because he's a power pitcher. But I like, his last couple of games, 5 innings, 3 runs, 6 innings, 3 runs. Not too shabby. I think he pitches well against the Padres team coming off a Coors Field series. On the other side, Yu Darvish faced these Dodgers once this year. 6 2/3, only 1 earned run and a Padres victory. 6 strikeouts in that game. Darvish pitched well against Los Angeles last season with a sub-3 ERA. Coming off a successful outing against the Rangers, 6 innings, no earned runs, only 3 base hits, 9 strikeouts against a very good Rangers lineup. I'm going to take the under here in Los Angeles, San Diego, 10 tonight. And that's it. Those are the games for Friday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.